This week on the Stogie Geeks Show, Fred Rewey from Nomad makes a return visit. Tom Pearson from Commonwealth Cedar Spill sits in with us as our guest host. We talk boutiques in our Debonair Ideal. We'll have a hot topic segment and, of course, the Stogies of the Week, so stay tuned.
This is a Security Weekly production. Bombay cigars represent the most admired cigar culture of Cuba. They select the best of the best quality tobacco to use in the aging process. Bombay cigars are then rolled in Costa Rica by some of the most experienced cigar rollers, giving it a unique smoking experience. The band portrays the detailed and artistic nature of our small industry. Try the Bombay Casera, Bombay Mora, and the recently released Bombay Havana. Bombay cigars, where the cigar is a way of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the Stogie Geek Show. This is episode 209 for this Monday, November 14th, 2016. Will Cooper here from Studio C in North Carolina. Tonight, I will be hosting the show. Paul is not here. For folks who don't, I did see Paul this weekend, and all is good. In fact, Paul was down in Charlotte, and I'll kind of talk a little about that as the show goes on. But tonight, actually, we're joined by a very special guest host, Mr. Tom Pearson of Commonwealth Cedar Spills. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me, or thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. And, of course, up at the Villiger North America Studios in Rhode Island, we have Mark and Riley and the team up there, keeping things going very, very smooth tonight. We have an outstanding show. We're going to get right into our guest segment in a minute, but kind of give you the heads up. First, we'll have an interview with our special guest, who's Fred Rewey of Nomad Cigar Company. We'll do our Debonair Ideal segment, where we'll have a topic on boutiques, and it will be a pretty interesting discussion. We'll do a hot topic segment, and there's a lot going on, obviously, with the elections. We'll try not to get political, but we'll kind of talk a little about maybe what it means for the cigar industry and, of course, the Stogies of the Week. So, I want to welcome, actually, Fred back to the show. And Fred, I always know, there's we try to get our guests on once a year normally. So this is kind of Fred's annual visit, and it's amazing because I kind of go back and I go through each of the shows with Fred's journey, and it's amazing how much happens from one year to the next year. So this is actually Fred's fourth appearance on the Stogie Geeks Show. Fred, welcome back.
Thank you. Do I get a studio name number? I mean, you're Studio C. I want one. I mean, just, for the show or something.
The Nomad Cigar Studios.
Okay, all right.
Well,
yeah, there's a lot different. I mean, I think there's just more crap in my office now than there was when we first started. I mean,
no, it's amazing. And it's, Fred, I remember because you were actually when we kind of reconfigured the show back in 2013, and I joined it. We started adding regular guests, and Fred was actually the first regular guest we booked. It was interesting.
They thought of canceling the show, but they thought, let's not base it on the one guy, so let's just try it. And that worked out. Now you're 209 episodes, I think you said.
209 episodes, yeah. And you had one regular production cigar, which was your classic line, and you were just coming out with the 1386, which I'm smoking tonight. I break out the 1386s every time Fred's on the show because it's one of my favorites. And I'm probably down to my last one for next year.
Yeah, it must be nice to have some.
I think I have 3 boxes, and then I've got maybe 35 from the pre-run when I was still playing with it that never really made it to boxes. But I don't have too many of them as well.
I have none left.
I think I gave you one last time. Oh, wait.
No, I probably smoked that.
Before August 8th, I know that I gave
I was going to say, was that before August 8th?
Yeah. Yes.
No, so so it's interesting. So you were in 2013, and in 2014 you came back, and this was around the time you were kind of starting to play with your Boulder brand, the C276,
Yeah,
which
actually
was
the S307, which ended up
S307.
being, yeah, that ended up being the first full production Nicaraguan. C276 was not quite on the radar yet. 307, I was playing with some of those tobaccos, and then I had flipped back over to the Dominican Republic for the Connecticut Fuerte. And about that time is when 207's, excuse me, 276's tobacco was on the radar. It was, as I think we talked about in the show before, it's usually well over a year in advance. So about when 307 was hitting, we're still playing with 276. And it took me a long time to get my arms around that. At the time, I thought that would be the hardest one to play with. And I still actually stand by on the C276 that I think, for that wheelhouse of a full-bodied, lot of flavor, I still don't think I could beat that blend. I'm really happy with that blend.
Yeah, and I've always kind of commented these blends just age fantastic, and that's another one that's just been a great aged blend. I've put some away in the humidor, and it's great to go back to them. Then last year, you kind of was the time where Therapy was launching, and that was your first foray into Maduro. So it was like that journey continued again.
Everybody kept saying, "When are you going to do Maduro? When are you going to do Maduro?" And I'm like, I have no clue how to blend with Maduro right now. So it's just, again, that was the year. I think you actually asked me this on the show 2 years ago, or you sent me an email asking me about Maduro, and I said that I just didn't have the knowledge to do it. So it was about a year out, and then finally Therapy rolled around, and we had the Pennsylvania broadleaf and the Maduro portion of Therapy, and then since we've played with San Andreas.
Yep. But Fred, you played with a lot. I mean, so in terms of now you come back this year and there's a lot to talk about. And you mentioned the San Andreas, so why don't we kind of get right into that one? Because you actually did two San Andreas releases, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. There's actually a Dominican cigar that has a San Andreas wrapper, and there's a Nicaraguan cigar that has a San Andreas wrapper. So the Dominican cigar was when I had first started playing with the San Andreas, and happened to be in Houston, and Jorge at Stogie's tried it, and I was really just, we were just kind of just sitting there kind of shooting the breeze and wanted to get his opinion of it. And I was still very much playing with it. And he called about a week or two later and said, "Look, I really want this for the H-Town." And I had said that I was still kind of playing with it a little bit. And he says, no, I want it exactly the way it is. So that ended up being for the H-Town series. At the time, he was, I think, doing 10 Lanceros, and that was the 8th one. And I was really honored to have that. And then, the SA-17 was going over to the Nicaraguan side, which, totally different cigar. Matter of fact, there's Lanceros available in both of them, which is pretty rare. The Stogie's Lancero obviously only comes in a Lancero. The Dominican San Andreas only comes in a Lancero, but it's interesting to try them back to back and see the differences that you can get between the two countries. It's just the Nicaraguan version is much more robust. There's both Esteli and Condega Ligero in it. Also played with Ometepe again, which I'm a big fan of. So it ended up being a completely different cigar, which I had anticipated that it would. You just don't know until you actually start playing with the tobacco.
Hey, Fred, not to backtrack, but the Therapy, wasn't that 3 cigars or 3 blends,
yeah,
3 different blends, right?
Therapy is 3 different blends. So it's a tray that was limited to 100 retailers, and there's a Robusto and a Toro of each size. And my goal was, at the time, what I was trying to do was wrestle around with the increasing cost of tobacco. All my cigars, with the exception of Martial Law, which hadn't been done yet, was under $10. And I was really trying to see, could I get down a lower price point? Therapy on the shelves, depending on your state, but as average, the MSRP is $6.95 for a Robusto, $7.49 for a Toro. Since I wasn't going to sacrifice tobacco, I had to find a way to save some costs. So Therapy ended up being a tray, of which the retailer refills with the bundles into the trays. But, I saved over $15,000 just not doing it out of the gate. So I didn't have to make any sacrifices. So the Therapy actually comes with 3 blends. There's a Robusto and Toro of each blend. The first blend is a Connecticut that actually has a San Andreas binder, which a lot of people don't realize. Mm-hmm. The second one is a Habano, and the third one is the Maduro, which is the Pennsylvania broadleaf. And I would say, as a whole, the Pennsylvania broadleaf sells about 2 to 1 over the other 2 blends. especially if you can find something. I mean, some gorgeous tobacco in that gorgeous wrapper. So if you can find something that price point and that caliber, it's pretty unusual. So I think that's why that's a hot seller in there. The next step ends up being the Connecticut with the San Andreas binder. Once everybody realizes there's a San Andreas binder, if I had to put it on the outside, and no one would touch it. You know, the mild smokers be like, oh no, I can't have this. Look how dark it is. But San Andreas is really a nice sweet tobacco. So you put it in, hide it inside the binder. I've actually been in a shop where a guy's like, oh, I don't like any of the dark tobacco. And I'm like, let me just peel off a little bit of that cigar.
Look what you got there. No,
What was so challenging about working with San Andreas?
I think for me, it was the direction of which way to take it. My palate's very simple. I don't have the palate that people in the reviews have that have the super palates and things like that. So I tend to taste a sweetness. I tend to taste, kind of an earthiness to it. It's a very toothy tobacco and stuff. So it can play to the rustic side. It's kind of the offset of what Ometepe is for me a little bit, from the standpoint of that Ometepe can play one way or two ways for me in the blend. San Andreas was a little bit more clear cut. So it wasn't as challenging. I think once I'd already done some of the other ones, once I already started playing with more stronger Esteli Ligero and some of the Ometepe, once I got to understand the Ometepe a little bit, I think that when I had revisited and came back around to the San Andreas, it was a lot easier for me than when I had first picked it up, which is about 3 years ago or whatever. I just couldn't wrap my arms around it. So once I gained experience on Ometepe and gained experience on different Ligeros, Esteli Ligeros, particularly on the stronger ones, I was able to circle back around on the San Andreas, and it was a lot cleaner of a process for me in the blending.
Oh, so I got to ask a question on the SA17. I don't know, maybe this is something you're not going to disclose, but what is the 17?
17 is actually, in this particular case, SA is the San Andreas, obviously, and the 17 it's the 17th rendition of that blend. Now, there are sub-blends, so it's not like it was right on the 17th shot, but basically it was the 17th rendition of that blend that I had laid down and was happy with it.
So before the show, I was going through all this geography. I was trying to figure out what the 17 was in terms of, because some of your other ones have been geography types of things.
Yeah, they certainly. I mean, 307 is the square miles of Esteli. The 276 is the square kilometers of Ometepe. 1386 and 8613 are both longitude and latitudes of Esteli. So I mean, I don't know how many emails I got after the SA17 came out that everybody's emailing going, okay, wait a minute, I can't figure out the 17. There was a very close ploy. The biggest guesses that I got out there had to do with the movie ratings, that I was trying to make a play on movie ratings. And the other one was the hull from the Star Trek ship, which was NCAA 17 or something like that. So those were the two biggest guesses. But it really was something as simple as it was the 17th version of that blend. Nice.
Will Cooper, Stogie Geeks, episode 209. We're here with Tom Pearson co-hosting with me tonight, and Fred Rewey is our special guest. So, Fred, like I said, it's been a great year. Now, another thing you did, I guess, new is, Nomad's kind of this where you be anywhere. And I guess you went to another factory this year, and you released a cigar that I really think, Fred, it's your home run. It's that Martial Law. Tell us a little about that.
I'm really happy with that cigar, and that's probably the most cliche thing a cigar maker could say, the first cigar they put out, but I actually really am. I smoke more of those than I think I do anything else lately. The idea behind the blend was an amped up 8613, so it was still going to have Condega Esteli Ligeros in it for this version. The 8613 only has Condega, not Esteli. So I really wanted to do a double Ligero. I really wanted to amp it up. I didn't want to take out the Ometepe. So one of the things that I was looking at and where to make it and things I was playing with, was to look at James at Black Label. And I really like some of the stuff he does. I think James has done a fabulous job of bringing a factory up to speed in a short amount of time. Now I think he's about a year and a half into it, and he had made cigars prior elsewhere, but to have his own factory and control his own destiny, I think was a big deal. We had met several times, kind of hit it off, so we just decided to just kind of play around with some stuff. At the time, I really wasn't intending on doing the cigar there, but I was kind of learning a little bit from James, because what I really respect that James does, which was not necessarily I had in the Nomad portfolio, was James placed, in my opinion, in a lot of fuller bodied tobaccos. I joke, I give him hassle. I don't think he can make anything less than a medium plus, but I know he can. But so I kind of wanted to, see what he would walk through on tobaccos that he liked, him not knowing that this is what I was playing with. I'd already had the blend, but I wanted to see the tobaccos that he brought to the table. And the Esteli Ligero was a real winner on what he had played. Matter of fact, I gave him the blend specifically on what I want him to do, and he sent back 3 versions of it. We ended up going with the middle version, which was the one that I had originally done, but the stronger version I really liked too. And in retrospect, I'm glad I went with the middle one, because the stronger one probably would have been a little over the top for what I was going for. But I think what his asset is that he plays with stronger tobaccos and still has a lot of flavor. You can make a really crappy strong cigar if you wanted to, because you just bury all the imperfections out. You stuff enough Ligero in there and it's halfway decent, you're just not going to have it. So I really respect that he does a stronger cigar and still has a lot of flavor. So I did that. And then the other one, Fin de los Mundos, I did out of there, which is kind of that quasi, it's released, but not broad released yet enough. But those were the 2. But martial law, I'm real happy with. I used to describe it as a kind of a double Ligero version of the 8613. And I really had to back off describing that, because that was more my perspective, but it's not the perspective when you smoke it, because it really is a totally different cigar and a lot more flavor and a lot more strength. The 8613 is kind of in everybody's wheelhouse. Martial law, you got to be that medium plus smoker, because especially when you first light it until it settles down, that Esteli Ligero will really wake you up.
Yeah, Fred, it was interesting because when I smoked it, I wasn't expecting it, because I was thinking what you did with C276. And that was kind of your more fuller one. And I'm smoking this. I'm like, is it me? And it wasn't like it was knock me down, but it was much stronger than I anticipated. Tons of flavor. I mean, and I was just wondering that. And now that you're saying it, I'm kind of, yep, okay, I see it. I definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it caught a lot of the critics by surprise, because I think that they had pretty much thought of where I had settled into my portfolio and my signature. And I think most cigar manufacturers have a signature in their tobacco and what they play with, which was another reason to just kind of play outside, play at the different factory again, to just kind of, have different ingredients or different styles, if you will. So I think that one caught everybody by surprise. The reviews have been tremendous. And like I said, I'm really happy with that cigar, and I'm glad everybody liked it. It's all just been a journey for me. So I'm glad that people are still hanging out for it.
Tom, have you smoked it yet?
Yeah, I've had it, and I want to say, I mean, I really agree. There's right off the foot, there's a nice pop, and it doesn't diminish. It just kind of mellows, and I think it really speaks to what. And Fred, you're maybe you're your best promoter, but you make interesting cigars. There are a lot of really big guys out there, and maybe it's because of the amount of volume they're making or producing, or the tobacco they have access to. It's like, yeah, I know what I'm going to get from that guy, that brand, that big monolith. Fred to me has just always made interesting cigars. He's always stepped out of his current wheelhouse to something else, and it's never boring. And
I appreciate that. I think that's a leg up that a lot of the boutiques have. I think that we get to play with, we discovered tobaccos that would just get lost in with a big manufacturer. They would literally just be broken down until they dissipate into nothing. So we get the chance when we find some unique Ligero, which was the case of the lot 1386, or some Omotepe that was really cool, which was the case of the 8613. Or the Esteli Ligero again in the martial law that we're talking about. We get an opportunity, because we're not running millions and millions of cigars. We get a chance to play with some of that stuff a little bit differently.
And Fred, you went with one size with the martial law?
I did. I went with the Toro exclusively.
Was there any rationale behind that? Or just...
No, I mean, the name. It was originally going to be one. It was something I was considering for an LE. I wasn't sure what the market would think of it per se. The name was not even supposed to be martial law. It had a different name. I was in Esteli at the time. I was signing off on the blends were already done and signed off on. So I was just gonna smoke those. For the heck of it, but I was actually going down and check the boxes and the bands. And what happened was I was out, and it was early in the afternoon, and the FDA dropped its whole bomb, which we kind of knew was coming. So the boxes had been made but not printed. The bands were ready but not printed yet. So I told everybody to hold everything. I was all pissed off. We went out, James and I went out and had some drinks, and I just said, screw it, I'm coming up with a different name for this. I was all pissed off at the FDA stuff. So I thought of the name Martial Law. I had about 5 names. Martial Law was the top of my list. So I called trademark attorneys and said, hey, is this name taken? And I just assumed that it would be. And it wasn't.
Nice.
So I said, oh, that's it. I said, all right. I said, file the trademark for Martial Law. I'm going to come up with some new artwork. I'm going to come up with a different box design. Well, the boxes were done. So I just came up with something more simplistic, just the stamp of the logo of the wings, and Martial Law, kind of like that military stamp a little bit. And so that's how the name came about. And to answer your question, way too long. It really was, the idea always was to be a Toro. I have to say, though, after I got done with the blend, I did play with other sizes, and it does make a really nice Robusto that I would have to consider at some point, if all the dust settles and everything goes well, putting one of those out, because I'm real happy with it, and just to have a little bit shorter smoke.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I thought it was the blend I felt was tailor-made to that Toro when I smoked it too. A lot of times Paul and I talk a lot about this too, where we look at the blend and the size, and we kind of look at everything as a different cigar. But sometimes I don't see the fit, but I just felt that it popped with that Toro really well.
Well, it was really nice, and it was a different experience for me, which is why all along it was really only one size, was to concentrate on something that was one size and not have to concentrate on, okay, how is this blend going to play out into other sizes? How am I going to tweak it to get to other sizes? And as you're typically around the Robusto, like I start with Robustos, and then I branch out from there, and I tweak them going towards 6x60 or going towards Lanceros. Very few times do I have a 6x60, very few times do I have a Lancero, because by the time you get there, it's just too tough to tweak the blend. You're happy with it, the 5x50. This was a fun project for me, because you got to play these little games for yourself. I mean, I don't know if all the other manufacturers do it, but you're like, okay, what if I just start blending straight to the Toro from the very beginning? That changed everything. I thought it would be easy, but it actually changed more than I thought it would in the very beginning, as far as ratios and things like that. So it was done straight for a Toro, and it's a small tweak to do a Robusto out of it. But in this particular case, it was always a Toro, and all the samples started at Toros, with the exception of just the straight tobaccos by themselves.
Absolutely. Tom, did you have another question on this?
Well, sort of. Is there a size that's a particular just pain in the ass to manufacture or to make, in your opinion, and with all the ones you've come out with?
Well, I mean, honestly, 6x60s are challenging. Anything 6x60 and above is challenging for me. I suppose that there are other manufacturers that would answer that question differently. Yeah. To me, the farther you get away from a 5x50 or a Toro, the farther you get from that wheelhouse. Your ratios change, your amount of air, your amount of fire, your amount of everything changes. And I'm sure there's people that have been on the show that can answer that question way more eloquently than I can. I just know the farther I get away from a standard size, a 5x50 or a Toro, as I get out there, it gets very difficult. Lancero's the opposite problem of a 6x60. I mean, you've got so much wrapper binder and so little room, not only from a amount of tobacco in there, but also from a construction standpoint. As far as, can the rollers do that small and thin of a cigar? And so sometimes, you try a Lancero and it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, but a Lonsdale works. To give you an example, I've never put out a Lancero in my original classic line. It never worked. It makes a really good Lonsdale, but it just does not make a Lancero. So answer your question, the farther I get away from there, and anything above like a 5x58 or 6x60, I've never seriously considered putting one out. I've got a lot of respect for the guys that do. I mean, Tom Lazuka, Asylum, I mean, I think he's got a great cigar for a certain market. I just don't have the ability to do it, and I don't smoke those at all. So I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So it was interesting, Fred. It was like, I guess it was right before IPCPR, and actually I drove to Vegas this year from Charlotte. So you have a lot of time in the car to think. And as I'm in the car thinking, there were 2 rappers I was always wondering if Fred would work with. One of them you actually came out with, and it's the Candela with the GB,
GB
17.
GB 19. I was ready to say 17. But GB 19.
19.
Yeah, the Candela. This was getting close up to the FDA stuff and pissed off, and you've got that bucket list of things that you have to work with. I think as a cigar maker, and one of them is the absolute taboo Candela. Look, not a lot of people smoke the Candelas. It's a very grassy wrapper. It was just a challenge for me. And the other part is that I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a big Packer fan. It just was a great fit for me to do. And GB stands for Green Bay. Obviously, 1919 is when the Packers started. Got a hold of some Honduran Candela wrapper. The binder's Ecuadorian. The filler's Jalapa, Ometepe, and Ligero from Esteli. And so, I proceeded to go through the blends. There are only 3 Candelas that I can think of offhand that I like that aren't mine. So I had, I don't like the grassiness. I like it when you can offset it with some spice. That was another one that I went over to Oveja Negra, but as opposed to the 8613, where I pretty much dictated the entire blend, on this one, I actually, brought James in a little bit and said, look, help me out here. I'm struggling on this blend. And he came up with a pretty good offset on it that I was real happy with. And we kind of went from there. So, it's got some spice to it. I would have liked the wrapper to be greener, but the more green you go, the more you start getting those grass tones that just, to me, I just don't like in a Candela. So I guess it was that bucket list item of throw it out there. Most people are going to hate it because they can't stand Candelas. And then you're going to have people go, wow, okay, for a Candela, this is pretty good. And what I should have really done is I really should just have people blind taste test it, and they probably wouldn't even catch, for the most part, they're smoking Candela because, one, nobody even thinks of a Candela. And 2, it's got a lot of spice and everything to it. It probably wouldn't be the first thing off your mind is saying, oh, it's a Candela. It is subtle. You can taste it in there, but it's got a lot of spice to it and everything to offset it, particularly with the Esteli Ligero.
Does it smoke better in Wisconsin, in Green Bay?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's way, at a Packer game, it's way, way better. I'll be in Green Bay in a couple of weeks. I'm sure it smokes way better there.
Nice.
But they're playing Thanksgiving Day, right?
They are not. That used to be our thing. We're not playing Thanksgiving Day this year, which I'm kind of disappointed. I remember in my childhood they usually did.
Yeah.
Nope, not this year.
Yeah, it wasn't like Green Bay, Dallas, Detroit, and somebody Pittsburgh. Maybe.
I think my best Thanksgiving I remember from my childhood is my mother and sister went away somewhere to a wedding or something. It was just me and my dad just made like a huge prime rib. And we just sat with TV trays watching the game on Thanksgiving.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Very, very nice like that. You're talking about what I find with that. I call, like, the Candela wrapper that looks the prettiest to me is, like, I call it the Kermit the Frog green. And occasionally I can get a Candela with that. But when you age Candela in a personal humidor, I have some Candelas that are like 6 or 7 years old. They brown. So they're going to lose it anyway, is what
Yeah.
So I don't get too worked up on it anymore. They just, like, I have some from like 2011, and they're literally brown at this point. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But they still smoke like Candela.
Yeah, it's one that I knew when I put out, and, other manufacturers like, really don't do it. You're just you'll get beat up on it. And, I didn't care. I just did it. If I don't have enough street cred by now on my blends, then I don't think I ever will. So, look, this was my attempt to deal with a very challenging tobacco, and I've been relieved to get a lot of response of people going, "Wow, this is actually a really good Candela." And like I said, there's a short list, I think, of ones that people actually gravitate towards. I think Skip Martin's Candela, I think, is very good. I think Dion Lucion's Candela is outstanding. And I think LFD actually has a very good Candela. So it ends up, for me, it's a very short list. And for other people that have a similar short list or didn't like Candelas, I usually tell them also to try those other 3 if they liked mine, because it's kind of that wheelhouse of, not everybody went for the grassiness of there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Paul and I had a conversation about another Candela, and it was actually pickle juice. And pickle juice was one of those Candelas that wasn't a grassy one, and they succeeded in that. But Paul's the kind of guy, he was like, I guess he was expecting the grassiness on that. And I already knew that the grassiness wasn't on that. So when he smoked, he goes, what kind of Candela is this, is what he went. He said, very different. So, a lot of people, when I hear why they don't smoke Candela, it's because they don't want that grassiness. So, or that wet lawn clippings, I heard someone say. So, I do have the cigar in my possession. So, I have to still smoke. I did not get a chance to smoke it, but I have a couple of these in my possession right now. I literally just got them in the last week.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the grassiness, so it wasn't a way I was going to go with my blend for sure.
Any possibility of a barber pole?
No, I mean, I looked at it. I did it in 3 versions. So I did it with the version that you have out that's in the market. I did a barber pole of it, which I actually really liked. I just didn't like the look of a barber pole for me personally, for my brand. And the other one is that we'd actually literally cut out 4 diamonds out of Connecticut wrapper and put them on along the cigar to represent the 4 rings that the Packers have. It was just a nightmare as far as consistency and how long and how much I was going to pay people to cut out these little diamonds. And so I just finally said, you know what, I'm okay with that.
But I'll tell you, Fred, if you're going with a factory for an artisan look, what James is doing, not only is he producing great blends, and I think this year he's had an incredible year, the artisan work he's doing on these blends are just really spectacular.
Yeah, he's putting a lot of really good things, which is why I was really glad to go over there and start playing with different things over there. And I have a lot of respect for him, and I think he's come a long way.
No, I agree. I mean, like I said, he's had a very good year, and like I said, martial law was another testament of what I'm seeing coming out of there as well. And I'm sure this is going to be a really good cigar. You'll be hearing from me on this really soon because I do have this cigar now in my possession. There were a couple of other, I'd say, cigars that you launched at the show, but I think they're not really in the market yet, right? They're kind of maybe limited in the market in a few places.
Yeah, they're not widespread. I mean, we had cigars we had to get on the market before August 8th, so they're not widespread right now. We're looking at when to increase production and open up more stores for that, but right now I don't have a specific date other than probably early next year.
Yeah, and one was the Fin de los Mundos, which that was your another Pennsylvania broadleaf you've done.
It is, and it's arguably the strongest cigar I've ever made, no question. But again, that was after about a year ago, playing with different stuff with James and understanding the tobacco isn't strong and how to get strength and flavor out of it. The closest I had come at that point was the C276, which I think is massively complex. And I don't think you can push the strength much higher and have that much complexity, but you can push the strength higher and have a really good flavor profile. And that's what I think we did in the Fin de los Mundos.
And that means end of the world. So I guess that was another subtle hint to the FDA.
Yeah, that was another FU to the FDA. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I actually the packaging that you it's cool. It's got black. It's got a black band. It looks like a real rugged, tough cigar. When you look at it, you see this is going to have some kick to it.
Yeah, it's just black and red.
One thing, Coop, I can say about Fred. I mean, when the FDA regs and things started coming out, and correct any of this if I'm over or understating or misstating, Fred.
Okay.
You read all the regulations. I've been at multiple cigar events with you, and you've, in my opinion, probably done a better job than any other cigar maker I know, putting it into a more layman's terms, literal impact, making some of the numbers that the FDA put out that people banter around online in perspective. Because I think a lot of folks thought, well, wow, the cigar market, if they're coming after us, it must be 40% of all the tobacco sold, and it must just be something worth going after for the FDA for just on the pure money line.
Right.
And, kudos to you for being, one, just very approachable in general, but two, willing to engage the shop owner, the guy who's attending the event, the average cigar smoker, and say, all right, calm down, but participate, sign the petition, get involved, do something.
Yeah, I probably just read that information off Coop's site now that I think about it. No, I'm just kidding. No, Coop does a lot of very valuable stuff, I will say. I mean, I think I was just trying to get the word out there a little bit. I'm still, and even prior to the election, I'm still maybe naively so, but optimistic that there will be changes I think the FDA's biggest mistake was putting a grandfather date in there. That makes no sense. So this cigar is okay, but this cigar is not. So I think we have a lot of ammo for that. I just, like I said, the reason I say naively optimistic is that I just still have faith in our system that a federal judge is going to look at that and go, you know what, I don't know if you can regulate them or not regulate them, but I know you went about it the wrong way. I know that you can't, you can't retroactive back things 9 years and put somebody out of business. You can't, there's so many holes in that, I think. I think that you're never, we engaged in an argument that had to deal with health issues, and you're never going to win that in an argument. I don't care how many scientists you put up to say the otherwise. It's a freedom issue. It's definitely a freedom issue, and hopefully with a new administration and a focus on there, which it's not a given by any means. This is probably on Coop's hot topic list, so I'm not going to go any farther. But I'm hoping that we get some changes there.
Interesting. Fred, in terms of a business plan, though, I mean, are you guys like you are the guys everyone's worried about right now. So in terms of you're definitely a businessman. I mean, and we're going to get into a little more of some of the things you're doing, but I mean, do you have your plan now going forward if it is a worst case scenario?
I'm planning on going forward. I think I'm kind of in that upper level of guys that are kind of screwed. From the standpoint is that I have a sizable portfolio. I've got 14 blends, 47 SKUs. So it's a little big to just walk away from. I've spent too much time building it, and nowhere near as much as other people have spent, but certainly enough of my own time since 2012 building it. I'm at that 5th year where I just wanted a legit shot, and I feel like I have that in the portfolio. So I'm planning on moving forward until I see a reason that I can't. And I'll say it publicly because I don't have a problem saying it. What concerns me the most is not necessarily the dollars, because the dollars may or may not be sizable for somebody at my level. We don't really know exactly, although we're honing in on it pretty close at this point. My concern is that if it goes, if it is worst case scenario, as you say, and it does stick the way it is right now as of August 8th, my concern is even if I can or willing to write the checks necessary going forward, is it an environment that I want to play in going forward, or did it suck the joy out of it? If I can't really feasibly as a boutique maker put out new blends that everybody's excited to try new blends, if I can't hand my friend a cigar in a cigar shop and things like that, I have to look, is there enough pros left in that, if all that in the worst case scenario, versus, honestly, if I was working with another company. And you know what? They dealt with all the bullshit. They dealt with all the legal stuff. And I could just still sit there and make cigars and talk to people and have events and do that other kind of thing. So I've never been a massive detail person. I'm not excited about going through all the FDA paperwork and things like that. I'm really not. We're going through some of it right now, and I did some stuff online that they came back and said, oh, you literally, it was something stupid, like you didn't cross this T type thing. And I'm like, are you serious? I think my wife was on the other side of the office going, what are you pissed off at? I'm like, and so it starts, because it literally was like one of those government things, like you needed to cross the T and put your initial here type thing. So whatever it was stupid. But so short answer, Coop, I'm planning on going forward. I've got too much in it. It's grown. It's built a reputation. So until I see a significant reason not to, we're planning on going forward. But I am concerned of, if it does stick worst case scenario, what are we walking into? If not this year, what are we walking into 3 years from now? Once that door is open, we could have a lot of problems later. And that concerns me more than some of the stuff that's on the table right now.
Yeah. I mean, from my standpoint, as putting on my consumer hat. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I froze. My screen froze.
I thought you were just a really good ventriloquist.
Yeah, same here.
No. So in terms of that, I mentioned there were 2 rappers. I mean, the other rapper I wanted you to work with was Cameroon. So I kind of said, well, he may never get that out now because and I've watched this growth that you've had and the blends you're coming out with, and you just kind of each one of them kind of just seems to be building upon the others, and that's the part that disappoints me as the consumer if that can happen.
Yeah, the Cameroon did. It's funny you bring that up. The Cameroon did not make the August 8th.
But you were playing with it. You were playing with it.
Yeah, it just did not. I mean, the two blends, the Signature and the Fin de los Mundos, that were out for August 8th, those were blends that were already there. That wasn't an issue. I didn't throw stuff out there that I wasn't already playing with or was already pretty much finalized for that date. The Cameroon wasn't going to make that date. It wasn't ready, and I thought of just throwing something out there and trying to tweak it later depending on what the guidelines are, but it just didn't make it. So I'm hoping that one's still on the table, because that is pretty much the next one on the list.
So you're saying there is a elusive Nomad Cameroon out in the wild.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Exactly.
I had no knowledge of this. This was just kind of like my wish list I was going through.
It's not a Cameroon in the wild. There's not a Cameroon in the store.
So you can neither confirm nor deny it.
No, I can confirm there's not a Cameroon.
Okay. Nice. All right.
Tom's like trying to read between the lines, hoping it's there, but it's not there.
I'll make the phone call. I'll find it.
Humidor, I can confirm it. Yeah. Who am I kidding?
Nice.
There was one other blend, the Signature as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one we can expect to see as well? And what's that one about?
The Signature's there. It was one that was literally still kind of aging. And it was put out, and it is available in the wild. It's one, whether I choose to mass produce that or not, I haven't decided yet. It's one that I need to personally, because I've been so distracted, I need to go back and start smoking more of them and see if it's exactly perfect the way I want it. It's the only one that was kind of on the cusp there a little bit when we were pushing the date of whether it was 100% or not, or if I would tweak it. But it had already been aging, and I was already happy with it. And really, I just say that because I smoked one the other day and I wasn't happy with it, and I don't know if that's because of something that was in my palate or not. So as soon as I get off this call, I'm actually going to smoke another one now that you bring it up. Oh yeah, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to say shit like that. I'm supposed to say just like oh yeah, they're all perfect.
No, that's honest. I mean, but Fred, I look at this window closing now that you're going to bring these to market though. So I mean, because 2018, it's amazing we're 6 months into this already since the regulations were announced. Mm-hmm. So I mean, is that something in terms of a business plan? Are you going to you have to bring them to market, but obviously you also need enough time to launch them into market as well.
Well, I mean, that's the nice thing about being small and stealthy. I mean, I can launch fast. So I mean, I have the cigar. The cigars can be done. I need basically about a 4-month window, barring anything strange going on. So I've got plenty of time. I mean, I could sit there and I could still have a cigar out by the show if I decided as of today, or even next month. I mean, basically, you're talking about at least about a 3-month aging time. But barring production schedules and everything else, and usually the race is more dealing with boxes than it is anything else. But there's still plenty of time at my level, and not having a massive production level. If you're doing 100,000 cigars or something like that, that's really a pretty attainable thing to knock out pretty quickly. Or relatively quickly, I should say. But I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that right now. 2018 is not so looming for me, especially when you're talking about putting out a couple blends. But I also think that's because I don't have the pressure given the rest of the portfolio. I mean, honestly, if you don't have a cigar you like in the Nomad portfolio currently, I can't promise the next two are going to be any better for you. So I think we've got it covered. It's just more awesome goodness coming. But I think we're pretty well covered. Like I said, 14 different blends. I've got a lot out there at this point for whatever you're in the mood for.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Got a question for you, Fred. I mean, I make cedar spills, little wooden sticks to light pipes and cigars and what have you. And this regulation had no impact directly on me at all. I just keep producing them up. But as a cigar maker who's got to interact, submit, respond with the FDA, how is that? Is it all by email? Could you pick up the phone if you thought you had to get a hold of a body? Do they seem to have their forms, their paperwork, their processes in order? Because I've heard horror stories of like customs, like in and around Florida and Miami.
Yeah.
The FDA not knowing what customs needs.
Yeah, I can't really speak to the custom stuff. I haven't had a problem on that, and hopefully nobody's listening to the show that's going to create a problem in the FDA. But no, I mean, my paperwork's in order and everything as far as that's concerned. I think they're finding their way. I think that they don't know some of the questions to ask. I mean, a lot of it was rushed. All of a sudden, you're regulated as of August 8th, yet nobody even knows how to submit a new cigar, even if they wanted to submit a new cigar. So, I can't say that they're not trying to be accommodating. I can't see, even for my comment the other, as far as coming back and forth, they're responsive. You can call somebody if you have to. From what I understand, I have not. I prefer to communicate via email, but there are certain things that I want to do email that they need hard copies in the mail for.
Okay.
So, but I can't say that, in all fairness, I can't say that it's just been an absolute clusterfuck or anything like that.
Yeah.
Can I say that on the air here? Are we?
We're not FCC regulated. We're not FCC regulated.
Okay. So I don't think, look, nobody likes it. I don't think the process is organized and it's not clean and it's hard to find information. But beyond that, I don't think anybody's malicious or anything about it in the process.
Yeah. I was just, that was my biggest concern with any large organization, and the U.S. government's obviously a huge one, coming out with something like this that seemed sort of kind of rushed and pushed through as a political statement or
I've heard a lot of stories.
They wouldn't have anything ready.
I've heard a lot of stories of people that just have dealt with FDA or the customs level and basically just said that the person that's even working for them doesn't know exactly what they're supposed to do yet.
Yeah.
So it's an example of something being rushed through that doesn't have all the answers yet. So we're trying to get answers to questions that they don't even know what the questions are, let alone the answers. So they're learning through us.
Sure.
Absolutely. They are learning through us. It's very interesting. I'm gonna switch gears a little because actually, and this was kind of coincidental because I didn't know it was going to be hitting the market actually today. But your new book's out, Be the Lime, and
Yeah.
I followed this project. And this is something you've had a project going with this for a while. You had a podcast out there. This is something, Fred. I got to just say, and I'm not just saying this because you're on. This is something that's really helped me as a small business owner.
Oh yeah.
Tell us a little about this project and this book, because this is folks need to check this out if they haven't.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not a thing I talk about necessarily on the cigar shows a ton, but I mean, I'm co-owner of a marketing company. If you're in the boutique world, even one that's grown and everything else, I mean, it's not where you make the lion's share of your money. I mean, the money you make on cigars, you put back into the company. So, I didn't live off the last 5 years off selling cigars. So I do own a marketing company. We've had it for quite a while now. That concentrates with small businesses and works with small businesses, and I consult for different companies as far as how they handle their brand, how they handle their communications online, and things like that. So one of the things that I wanted to do, and part of it honestly was because I'm thinking, okay, the FDA is going to charge me a lot more money. I better make a little bit more money. So one of the things was to kind of pay attention to the side of the marketing company that I used to do a lot more of, and had kind of backed off a little bit. So what I really did at this point is I concentrated on knocking out the book to help people trying to promote their brand. It's really a 30,000 foot level. I mean, some people, if you're really, really into social media, some people are going to look at it and go, oh yeah, okay, I know all that. I think I covered enough topics that, you don't know everything on there. Oh, Tom's got a little picture of it. I don't know if they can see that since you're not talking.
Well, it's on here. I hope so. It's on.
Well, now they can. You're talking. Anyway, The title of the book is called Be the Lime, The World Has Enough Lemons. And it's basically how to be seen, how to be different, how to get yourself out there. It works for either someone personally trying to just, kind of personally get out there more, or more so with businesses. And I do a lot of consulting with businesses. And this is basically the first step of some other things that I'm going to launch that eventually at the beginning of next year becomes a membership where people can actually be online in the membership and get strategies every week they can use for their brick and mortar business. It's actually, the way I did it was kind of in a stealthy way with Amazon, is that it's actually free today, tomorrow, and maybe part of Wednesday. So if you go to the Kindle and you download, you go to Kindle, search Be the Lime, and you go to Amazon, it's free right now. It's really strange. It's a little confusing because you actually have to buy the book even though it's at $0. Because the other link there is Amazon's trying to get you to sign up for some sort of subscription thing. Yeah. So I've had a bunch of emails, people going, wait a minute, you said it was free. One guy really pissed off at me, and I'm like, no, it really is free.
It is free.
It's a little confusing. But anyway, so a couple of days, I kind of did it in a stealthy way, so before the price starts going up. So the price will actually eventually be back up to $8.99, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just take it up $1 each time. And I just wanted to do it because I sent it to my retailers. I sent it to the people in the cigar industry. I just said, hey, you know what? If this helps you, it's free. Go download it. There are a ton of downloads today, like 200 or 300 downloads. It's actually #1 in the sales and marketing category on the Kindle right now, and #1 in the small business entrepreneurship marketing. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm happy that people are downloading it and leaving reviews. Matter of fact, I'll probably send out an email going, if people leave reviews, then some sort of cool drawing or something like that. But yeah, so I mean, I love marketing. And I think I said in the email out to the retailers is that if it wasn't for marketing and it wasn't for social media, I don't think Nomad would have got off the ground. There's just too many cigars out there. There's too many things, and it's what I know best. I know how to market. I know how to communicate with different companies. I know how they should be communicating their database, and it's just one of those things that I happen to know, and I don't know why. I think it's because my brain's very simple. And I think if you can make the communication simple, then you have good results.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't overthink it. So this is just kind of one of those projects that I just finally kind of just start writing a chapter a day until I finally got it done and got the book out there. So I'm pretty excited about it. The feedback has already been great, so I'm thrilled.
And your podcast archives are still up there, right?
The podcasts are still there. At some point, I'm going to have to reevaluate that. As Coop knows, podcasts are a lot of work. And I'm like, wow, I just don't have time to do all that. But at some point, I'll probably fire those back up. I have to do an audio version of the book as opposed to hire. I really wanted to hire like Ben Kingsley or somebody to read it, but I guess I have to do it myself. So
yeah, I mean, the podcasts were excellent, and I'll tell you, like I said, I got some tips from that very, very quickly. And then today, I saw the book. I said, Fred's going to be on the show. So on my lunch hour, on my day job, I got the book. You'll see my review. It's under the pseudonym LA Scene.
Oh, nice.
So I actually did put a review up there. It's mine. It's a pseudonym I've used for other reviews I've done. And it is, and what I loved about it, Fred, it was like, that's how I need a book. It got my attention span. I can go in there, I can get what I need out of it, and then I can go back and pick it up again, or go back and refer to it. And to me, that's a book, and that to me, you hit my sweet spot with that book.
Yeah, I really tried to just have it where it was, bite-sized information. I don't necessarily recommend reading the book out of order, especially in the very beginning. But
I agree.
But you can. You can read you can read a chapter on Facebook. You can read one on Twitter. You can read the email marketing ones. It's good to read the very first chapters first about the avatars and things like that. But then after that, the idea is that and it's the same way when I lecture or when we're doing speeches. It's like give them something they can use. Give them a takeaway. Going, look, and part of the thing on the challenge of the social media that deals with brick and mortars, and I get this in cigar shops all the time, is that it's not knowing necessarily what to do on them. It's also to know which ones to even play with. You don't have to do every social media platform. I hate it when a new one comes out because everybody's like, "Oh, Fred, are you on Periscope?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." I mean, it's just like you don't have to do everything. One of the things with a marketing company else called Exposure One, and almost all of our clients want to be on Twitter. They're like, "Oh my God, I got to be on Twitter. I got to be on Twitter." I see it on TV and whatever, and it's like Twitter doesn't work for like 95% of all brick and mortars. Honestly, it wasn't until the cigar industry, for me personally, my wife and I, built and sold a couple companies. It wasn't until the cigar industry that I even found Twitter working for me. Because it's a way to communicate. But if you've got a brick and mortar in California and someone in Maine happens to be talking to you on Twitter, well, that's great. That guy's not going to walk into your store. Why do you want to use all your energy to talk on Twitter when it doesn't turn into sales? So some of the stuff in the book is identifying what's a medium that you don't need to play in or not worth your time, and which ones should you be playing in.
But Fred, I think one of the simplest things, because you already had with cigars, you had a cigar in the market, I think you were the first one to do it. You put your Twitter handle on your cigar band, which is really kind of, it's just simple. It's brilliant. They're in the market. They're in different states. They're across the U.S. Guys share sticks, swap sticks, whatever. So it's probably going to places you don't have. And when they like it, they comment on it and they look into it. And your Twitter handle's right there on the, at Godfather.
Yeah, I mean, I was the first person to put Twitter on the outside of the band, and it came up by accident. I was at a shop, and it was the Dominican cigar. I wasn't even out yet. I didn't even have bands. And I was just smoking with a guy out there, and then I came up from the restroom, and he says, "Hey, man, I found you on Twitter," and took a picture. And I'm like, "Wow, that's a really interesting idea." So people that see the band and see the Twitter handle on there, if they know what it is,
there you go.
Yeah, if they know what it is, then they understand Twitter and they jump on there. If they don't know what it is, they just think it's some dude's signature on there or something. Okay, who is this guy? So. It's been great. It's been great for communications, but like I said, back to the be the lime is like Twitter doesn't work for most businesses. But it worked very good for the cigar industry. And again, if it wasn't for social media, leveraging Twitter and Facebook and communicating with blogs and things like that, the brand would not have been built. And I think it's underutilized by a lot of people in our industry, which is good for me. But I think a lot of people that think that they're ready to engage in that conversation aren't prepared to do that. And it's a true real-time engagement.
Thomas brought up the Twitter handle as kind of a lime. The other lime I thought of was the way you do your email communication, which I think is real unique. You got to get on Fred's email list if you're not. These are cool emails you're gonna get. So they're just very they're very connected to you personally as well. And I think that's a huge differentiator. When I get an email from Fred, I know I'm gonna read it right away.
I did the corporate stuff for a while, and I have to say, both the cigar industry and Be the Lime for me is that, and you'll see, because Be the Lime is going to have an e-letter too, and you'll be able to get on that. But basically, it's awfully refreshing to just talk and not worry about corporate speak. I mean, obviously, I try to avoid typos and things like that, and they'll still be in there. But it's awfully it's just a sense of relief to just talk and say whatever you want to say. And just, it's like, I remember at one point, like the email I sent out today, I remember I had literally put LOL in it twice at some point. So I made fun of myself in the PS, basically saying that, okay, I realize I've said LOL twice and I'll seek counseling. I mean, it's just such a relief to just talk and not worry about this corporate thing or worry about what someone's going to think or say or whatever. It's like, this is me. Whether you like it or not, this is it.
Along those lines, Fred Coop, have you ever heard, I think, and correct me here, Fred, the cat in the box story?
Oh, yeah. Coop knows the cat story.
Yeah. I mean, that's classic non-corporate speak.
You can go back to podcast number 1, I think, on Stogie Geeks, and that story is probably there, is it not?
I think it is. I'm pretty sure that came up, where basically...
It was classic in the very beginning, that's for sure.
So if you're listening, folks, go back and check it out, because it's example of what Fred just said. It's social media, it's reactionary, it's quick, it gets out there, and it's Fred. It's
nobody wants an email that's like, hey, look at me, buy my cigar. I mean, it's just so. And conversely, some people don't want emails going, look, Fred just sent me an email, and half of what he just talked about was finding bacon in a buffet, and I'm like, okay, so you know what? Then don't follow me, don't listen to it. I don't care. I mean, to me, it's different, it's real. I said from day one, I'm going to tell you what I do right and tell you what I do wrong, and I'm not going to, put on an act. And if I don't know, I mean, Coop's certainly had a couple times on the show that he's, sit there and said, hey, what do you think of this? And I'm like, I have no clue. I don't know yet. I can't figure out that tobacco, whatever it is. So take it or leave it is how I am.
Yeah, for folks who want to see that episode, it's episode 63 in the archives. Called Nomads. Yep. So we're getting up on the hour. Thomas, do you have any other questions?
No. I'm good. I'm lucky. I see Fred, traveling on the road and a couple of different,
I haven't seen Fred in Charlotte in a while, and now my son's moved back from Orlando. So yeah,
that's right. I need to get up to Charlotte actually.
Yeah, we definitely have to get you into Charlotte. The landscape's sort of changed up here a bit, so I think it probably would be good. Anyway, Fred,
that was
as always,
code for anybody listening.
No. Fred, as always, thanks for the support. Thanks for the time you make here. Best of luck to you. And you're always welcome here. So we really appreciate it.
I appreciate your guys' support, both of you. So thank you very much for having me on the show. Tom, appreciate everything you do. Tom, by the way, is the best cigar ambassador ever.
Absolutely.
Tom typically buys a box of cigars and then gives away half of the cigars. So,
I still do, but where were we at? Were we in Pittsburgh at Paul's shop, Fred?
We were at Pittsburgh.
It was so bad, and I didn't mean any harm. I meant no harm.
I was doing an event, and Paul's and Tom's all excited, and he buys a box of cigars, and I'm doing an event. We're selling cigars, and then Tom starts handing out the cigars to everybody for free, and I'm like, Tom, I appreciate that, but I'm actually more trying to sell cigars.
I felt so bad.
It was great. It was at Allegheny. It was great.
Allegheny, yeah. And I just walked around to these guys. I'm like, give me that back. Give me that back. I'll get back like 5 cigars. I'm like, I'll get it back to you. Just wait a few minutes.
I can't even be mad at Tom because he literally is probably, you know, if there's an ambassador award or whatever, or say Coop was going to make up some sort of civilian, not really in the industry with the exception of Cedar Spills award, you should get it. Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree.
It's a message to everybody who's a fan of your cigar, any cigar. It's like, it's a business. Let them sell their stuff first, then go crazy, then go into fanboy. And you were so gracious about it. You just
stop anybody from buying anyway. So
yeah, it'd be
all right, guys. Thanks again, and we'll be back in a couple minutes with our Debonair Ideal. So stay tuned.